Hi, friends. It's Talking Heads of Atascocita this New Year's evening. And Eve, I'm on the phone. My name is Amy Bridwell, and I'm on the phone with Msgr James Golasinski. Msgr, how has your New Year's Eve been?
Pretty much like every year.
Uneventful?
You know, I remember something from when I was young. I don't know about the cartoon on the editorial pages of newspapers today, but when I was young, and of course I was young during World War II, I was 6 years old when World War II began. Well, actually, I was 5, and then I was 8 at the time of Pearl Harbor. But anyway, there was always a cartoon on the editorial page of our local newspapers, and it was the same theme. And it showed, on the one hand, the old year departing. And the old year was always depicted as the Grim Reaper.
Huh.
And then the new year was arriving.
Yes.
And the new year was a baby being brought by a Stark.
Uh-huh.
So the idea was, boy, we're glad to get rid of this old year that's ending.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Now, with this new year, we'll have something fresh.
Mm-hmm. New.
Well, the reason I bring that up is a little while ago, I was listening to the radio as I prepared something to eat, and on one of the local radio stations, which has a conservative orientation, from 7 to 8 in the evening, there are these two young fellows. I say young because of the sound of their voices, and also, although they have a lot of enthusiasm, it seemed like they don't have a lot of experience. And they were talking about the new year is beginning, and we have to commit ourselves to fight for this country. This country is fighting for. We have to have hope, that sort of thing.
Yes.
And anyway, one of them said that he was the son of an Italian immigrant, and how he appreciated this country so much because having been born the son of an Italian immigrant, and how this country is different from other countries. In other countries, you're kind of stuck. And he used the example of a bricklayer.
Mm-hmm.
If a person is born the son of a bricklayer, that's about all he has to look forward to.
Yes.
He can be a bricklayer like his father.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was sort of this vein. You know, we've had a good thing. Now let's fight in the new year and to protect and advance this wonderful, wonderful thing.
Yes.
But and once in a while they'll quote a verse from the Bible, but they're sort of the inspirational types of things. Do you know who Zig Ziglar is?
Yes.
Well, they mention Zig Ziglar from time to time.
Huh.
And how Zig Ziglar warns people against being negative.
Mm-hmm.
And we, as this year ends, can't get stuck in negativity. In the coming year, we have to be positive. And they use that expression. They quote Zig Ziglar using that expression of Alcoholics Anonymous, stinking thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
You know, stinking thinking, for example, is, one drink won't hurt.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And what happens is, one is too many and 100 isn't enough.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Well, as I was listening, even though they did from time to time quote verses and seemed like heavily Old Testament verses, it seemed to me they were missing out on something.
Mm-hmm.
Namely, if people are becoming more and more and more secular, they're going to become more and more self-centered. Now, they were calling on people to be willing to spend themselves to defend this great nation that we inherited.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't bring this up. It's interesting. I got a Christmas present from one of our Annunciation parishioners, actually former parishioner. He moved, is a new book by Scott Hahn and Brandon McGinley. I don't know who Brandon McGinley is, and I've only been able to look at the chapter headings. But the name of this new book by Scott Hahn is The Right and Just. I'm sorry, It is Right and Just. Taking those words from the opening of the prefaces that we use in Mass.
Yes.
And then the subtitle is Why the Future of Civilization Depends on True Religion.
On true religion.
Yes, on true religion. And then the various chapters develop the idea. For example, Chapter 10, Secularism is Unjust. Chapter 11, Civilization Requires True Religion. Chapter 12, True Religion Integrates Individuals' Lives. Chapter 13, True Religion Gives Form to Families. True Religion Brings Unity to Society. And then the final chapter, Chapter 15, The Future of Civilization Depends on True Religion.
Yes.
Are you familiar with C.S. Lewis's book, Mere Christianity? But do you know it didn't appear as a book? It's in Churchill. Churchill contacted BBC and told them he wanted some talks. And the reason was he considered England at war with Germany at the time, and it was only England at the time. It was in a battle, not between two nation states, as to who was going to be king of the mountain. He kept referring to it as a battle for the civilization of Europe. I don't know how religious Churchill was. I've never even read much about it. But in his, he had this great sweep of history and civilization. But when he looked at Europe, he saw that Europe was a Christian civilization.
Yes.
And what these social Darwinists, and that's what the Nazis were. A lot of people don't realize that. They don't realize that the Nazis were social Darwinists.
Yes.
And they were applying the idea of survival of the fittest. That's where they got the idea of master race.
That's right. Yes.
The man who promoted it was originally an Englishman, and he went to Germany. And I read in Paul Johnson's book, Modern Times, that when his name was Houston Chamberlain, when he was dying, Johnson wrote that Hitler went to his bedside and he kissed his hands because he had given the scientific basis, applying Darwin's ideas to society, not just species of animals, etc.
Yes.
And so that's that is how Churchill looked at things. That World War II was not just a battle between two nation states, but it was a battle for European, therefore Christian civilization.
Yes.
I don't know if you ever read Hilaire Belloc. Remember what he famously wrote?
No.
Europe is the faith, and the faith is Europe.
Oh, wonderful.
Well, I think it's time for us to mention what John Adams had to say about our founding documents.
Yes.
The Declaration of Independence, and especially the Constitution. I told you to look that up. What did you find?
Yes, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other.
Read it again.
Our
In case
Constitution.
somebody missed it.
Yeah, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other.
And what are we having? More.
Yes.
What? Secularism. Huh?
That's right.
Secularism.
20%.
And I thought, as I was listening to these fellows, the one who was the son of an Italian immigrant, I started thinking about how when I was young, divorce was practically unheard of among the Italians, here in Houston anyway. You know how I know?
No.
I had, when I was at St. Joseph, I imagine maybe 1/3 of my classmates were Italian.
Aha.
And I remember the morning going to school, and being out on the playground, and the news was sweeping through the city of Houston that Frank Sinatra was divorcing his wife.
Mm.
And I remember the father of one of my classmates, name was Navarro, and he was sort of speaking for the Italians. We're through with Frank Sinatra. He has betrayed us.
Oh.
Listen, when I was young, divorce is practically unheard of among the Italians here in Houston.
Yes.
I don't know the situation now. And these two young fellows on the radio I was listening to, they didn't bring up these matters at all. How? They didn't bring up, we have to restore the family. They just kept talking about, we have to fight for our culture, We have to take our government back. And it's all in terms of government struggle. Who's going to control the government?
Yes.
Are we going to control the government, or is the government going to control us? And just leaving out, well, what John Adams wrote. Now, some people, they talk not completely respectively about our founding documents, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And what is it that they bring up, the deficiency that they bring up always?
I don't know.
Slavery.
Oh, yes.
Slavery. But you know, there's one I regard her as a brilliant young black commentator who's all over the media these days. She was responding to this accusation. She said, but our founding documents established a mechanism, namely our government, and that's what the Constitution means, huh?
Yes.
That document constituted our government. That's what we call the Constitution.
Yes.
And she called our founding documents self-correcting documents. Self-correcting documents.
Yes.
And anyway, how was that accomplished? Through amendments. The people who drafted the Constitution realized that there would be developments in the future that could be dealt with by amending the Constitution, and that's why we had the first 10 amendments. People at the very beginning, they thought that there were some, might say, questions not dealt with in the text, and so that's where we got the first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights.
Yes.
But we have to go back to the fact that if we're going to have what these two young fellows were calling for, telling people they must be ready to sacrifice themselves, and on and on and on and on and on, that you can't do that in a secular society.
That's right.
And that's the theme of this new book by Scott Hahn and this Brandon McKinley. They develop this principle.
Yes.
In various aspects. So it might be good for our viewers if they try to get this book. I'm looking forward to reading it.
Yes. Hopefully in the new year you can give us a book review. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I know Pope, I read a book that was written by Pope Benedict, not recently, but about 15 years ago, before he was Pope, and he talked about the secularization in our culture, and that he cast one ray of hope for us in what he termed as these creative minorities. And I know other authors, Dr. Carrie Gress, have picked up that theme in her book, The Marian Option, and that these creative minorities that they cite, and the creative minority that will be, that I'm looking forward to hearing if there are going to be shades of it in this Scott Hahn book. You can tell me whether or not that this is the true religion whose fruit will give us a culture where people can succeed, and not a secular culture.
Maybe some of these people will come out of the homeschoolers.
God willing, yes.
I learned a few days ago that the first homeschooled man was elected to the House of Representatives recently.
Oh, wonderful. Well, God be praised.
Yeah. I guess he was socialized, huh? He wasn't one of those homeschoolers that didn't get any socialization.
Oh, that's ironic. The homeschooler is the did you say in the House of Representatives or Senate?
Yes. He was interviewed on the radio.
So the homeschooler is sitting in the House of Representatives.
Well, anyway, this fellow, when I listened to him, it sounded like he had fire in his belly.
Okay, nice. Well, I'm gonna have to look him up.
His first name is Madison. I don't remember his last name.
Okay.
Now, we have a country today. About half the children don't grow up with one or both of their parents.
Yes.
Now, when you have a situation like that, those children are, real fodder for secularization.
That's true. Yes.
And these fellows didn't talk about also matters like drug abuse.
Yes.
I mean, that is one of the most crippling things in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, when I went to Kroger's, outside, there were 3 young women. They were all in their 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a table and a display about these various things that they had made. And they were asking people to buy them to help support the place where they were living. They were living in the residence was for people with drug problems.
Okay.
They were all in their 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one I talked with, she was the mother of 3 children.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, I suggested to them that they go back to the residence where they have this program
mm-hmm.
for addicts, and put on the wall a sign, something I learned a few years ago. It's a great sort of proverb.
Mm-hmm.
It goes like this: wise men learn through observation. Fools learn through experience.
Yes, that's the truth. Boy,
Yeah.
That's the truth. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I told them, put it on the wall someplace.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And one of the 3 said, yeah, she said, my parents used drugs, but I didn't learn.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I didn't learn from observing them.
Yes.
I did the same thing. So it really caught me off guard.
Yes.
I didn't expect someone to apply it to herself as quickly as she did.
She connected those dots very fast. Yes, that's
Yeah.
good. That's hopeful. That's good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if only I had done that. If
Yes.
only I had learned from observing my parents
Yes.
and how it messed up our family life.
Yes.
I wouldn't be here today, here in front of Kroger's.
Right.
So it was interesting listening to these 2 young fellows on the radio, but it seemed to me that they were leaving out the most important thing of all.
Yes, the thing that gave us that culture where humans can flourish.
Early this morning, I was listening to Hugh Hewitt and Larry Arnn. He's the president of Hillsdale College.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with it?
Yes.
Well, it's interesting. Because Larry Arnn was talking about 2 great thinkers. One was Levi Strauss. He was a German Jew who fled Europe in the 1930s. And the other was Harry Jaffe.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Larry Arnn studied under Harry Jaffe.
Okay.
Harry Jaffe studied under Levi Strauss.
Oh,
And he was talking about what Levi Strauss fought against when he came to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Relativism and historicism.
Huh.
And he saw that was starting to really damage American education, American higher education.
Mm-hmm.
Relativism, of course, is there's no truth.
That's right.
Whereas historicism means It's sort of like applying an evolutionary idea. In fact, Larry Orange used the term. Eventually, he was called it evolution.
Mm-hmm.
I've known only one other person who ever did that. But you know, the verb is what? To evolve, huh?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Evolve.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get from evolve to evolution? But anyway, this historicism is there's nothing fixed, which is sort of an Hegelian idea that the human race is passing through one stage after another stage after another stage after another stage, and therefore, in higher education, the idea that there are, I'm going to use Dr. Joyce Little's term, he who taught theology at the University of St. Thomas, that there are givens in this world. They're givens. They're permanent things. We didn't invent them. We didn't farm them. They're there. They're there. And if one ignores those givens, and then one substitutes other things for those givens, which are part of nature and part of our nature, and that was one of the terms that was being used in their talk this morning, we have a human nature. And that human nature doesn't change.
Yes.
Unless you're an existentialist. Say, remember that guy, that Frenchman? We talked about him recently. He denied there was any essences. Everything was just experience. That's why he called it existentialism, just whatever exists. And that has permeated a lot of our higher education. And I believe that. But the way someone put it, when we're born, we're like warm plastic that can be molded. And that is what human existence is. One molds oneself into what type of person one wants to be. Where's this guy, Jean-Paul Sartre? Yeah.
Oh, Sartre. Okay.
The Frenchman. Yeah. Yeah. He would say, I think what I wanted to do, and I'll do it.
Yes.
And you know what I found out? This battle has been going on since the beginning of our country.
I did not know that.
I found evidence. There's a song that kids learned when they were young. I don't know if kids learn it anymore. Yankee Doodle. Yankee Doodle went to town riding on a pony, stuck a feather in his cap and called it macaroni. Things are what I called them to be. Huh?
Yes.
And then Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle, mind your step. Yankee Doodle. How's it go if I sing it? I can remember.
Mind your step and let the girls be handy. Yes.
No, you left out.
Oh, Yankee Doodle dandy. He's a he's a yes. He's a relativist.
Dandy. He's a dandy.
A dandy who is a relativist. Oh my goodness.
And is handy with the girls.
Yeah, yeah.
Not a good family man.
Not at all, yeah.
Well, I guess this is a good point to end on. People are going to be busy.
Yes.
With New Year's. But this is the end of our second full year.
Can you believe it? God be praised. God be praised for you, Monsignor. Thank you so much, and Happy New Year to you.
And to all of our listeners, Happy New Year. And remember, fear not, little flock. It has pleased your Father to give you the kingdom.
Yes, no cross, no crown. We'll see you soon, friends. Happy New Year.